The wild thing is that Marvel didn't start the multiverse saga just to flex variants and cameos. All of this was always heading toward the X-Men. Avengers Doomsday is basically the moment where Marvel stops teasing and finally puts mutants at the center of the board. Not as background flavor, not as Easter eggs, but as a real driving force of the story. We already got a taste of that with the teaser, and yeah, people dissected it frame by frame within seconds. Seeing Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier immediately tells you this is not some random alternate cameo. This is Marvel saying these versions matter. Same with Ian McKellen's Magneto and James Marsden's Cyclops. That lineup alone signals respect. These aren't joke appearances or nostalgia bait that disappears after 5 minutes. These are legacy characters being positioned as pillars of what's coming next. What the teaser really sells is the scale of the threat. Something is fundamentally wrong with that reality. You can feel it even without context. Entire Earths are under pressure, and that points straight at Dr. Doom. Doom has always been more dangerous when he's not just a tyrant or a genius, but when he's a man who understands the rules of reality better than everyone else and decides to rewrite them. The big rumor floating around makes a lot of sense when you think about how Marvel likes to open these massive crossovers. The idea that Doomsday could start with an incursion is not only plausible, it's kinda perfect. Two universes colliding in real time, with the X-Men's world slamming into another established reality, possibly even Raimiverse. That kind of opening instantly explains the stakes without a single exposition dump. You see worlds tearing each other apart, and you understand that survival itself has become a competition. Incursions are terrifying because there are no clean victories. Someone always loses a universe. If the X-Men's reality is already unstable when we meet them, it reframes everything they do in Doomsday. They're not just showing up to help the Avengers, they're fighting to keep their entire existence from being erased. That's a huge emotional angle Marvel hasn't really leaned into yet on this scale, and this is where people get it wrong when they say the X-Men are just passing through Doomsday. That couldn't be further from the truth. Doomsday is the setup. The real payoff is Secret Wars. Doomsday is where the rules break. Secret Wars is where those broken pieces get rearranged into something new. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen coming back isn't Marvel saying this is the future forever. It's Marvel honoring the past before pulling the trigger on a full reboot. These actors are legends, and honestly, they deserve a proper, respectful send-off inside the MCU instead of being forgotten or overwritten off screen. The Russos know this. You can already tell from the way these characters are being framed that this isn't a joke or a throwaway victory lap. The full, clean, long-term debut of the X-Men is coming after Secret Wars. That part has been hinted at repeatedly, not just by Kevin Feige, but even by Bob Iger. Once the multiverse saga wraps up, Marvel needs a new engine. Entire phases built around mutant politics, conflicts, and the fear they create in the world. You don't just sprinkle that in, you rebuild the universe so mutants feel like they've always been there. That's why the ending of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars is so important here. In the comics, everything collapses. The multiverse dies. All that's left are fragments of destroyed realities stitched together into Battle World, ruled by Doom, who steals the power of the Beyonders and becomes essentially a god. Every universe that survives exists only because Doom allows it to. He's holding reality together by force and ego. Eventually, Doom is exposed. Reed Richards outsmarts him, not by brute strength, but by understanding what Doom lacks. Doom can rule reality, but he can't truly create it the way Reed can. When Doom falls, Reed is given the power to rebuild the multiverse from scratch. Reed doesn't just restore things exactly as they were, he creates a new, singular reality where elements from different universes coexist naturally. That's how Marvel reset everything. The Fantastic Four, Avengers, X-Men all exist in one shared world without constant multiverse chaos. The history is streamlined. The universe feels whole again, even if pieces of the old multiverse are baked into it. Now translate that into the MCU and it becomes very clear what Marvel is setting up. Secret Wars is the excuse to rewrite the rules. After that movie, Marvel can say this is the new baseline reality. Mutants can exist openly. Their history can be redefined. Some characters may remember fragments of the old multiverse, while most of the world doesn't. That gives Marvel freedom without erasing emotional continuity. For the X-Men specifically, this is perfect. Instead of awkwardly explaining why mutants suddenly appear decades late, the universe itself has changed. Mutants are part of the new reality's DNA. Xavier, Magneto, Cyclops, all of them can be reintroduced in a way that feels intentional, not forced. And honestly, that's the smartest possible move. You let the legends pass the torch during Doomsday and Secret Wars, and then you rebuild the X-Men with a fresh cast, a clear long-term plan, and actual respect for the source material. So yeah, Doomsday isn't just another Avengers movie. It's the beginning of the end of the old Marvel and the quiet beginning of something mutant-focused, darker, more political, and way more character-driven. The X-Men aren't guests anymore, they're the future. One of the smartest and honestly sneakiest X-Men tie-ins Marvel has done recently didn't even happen in an Avengers movie. It happened in the Marvels, and at the time, a lot of people brushed it off as just another weird multiverse stinger. Monica Rambeau gets stranded in an alternate universe, wakes up in what looks like a medical facility, sees her mom alive, and then casually meets Beast, played by Kelsey Grammer. That scene instantly became way more important once Grammer was confirmed for Avengers Doomsday, because now it feels less like a fun cameo and more like a breadcrumb that Marvel planted very deliberately. That post-credits scene suddenly reads like a door being opened. Monica didn't just fall into a random universe. She likely ended up in a reality that's about to be pulled into the larger multiversal collapse. If Beast is there, that means mutants are already organized, already active, and already aware that something is wrong. Doomsday could very easily circle back to that moment and show us what's been happening in that universe since Monica arrived, turning that cliffhanger into a key plot thread instead of a loose end. And that lines up perfectly with what we know about the original X-Men cast returning. This is shaping up to be their final ride, not the start of a new chapter. Patrick Stewart as Xavier, Ian McKellen as Magneto, James Marsden back as Cyclops, Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler, Rebecca Romijn as Mystique. That lineup alone screams endgame energy. It doesn't feel like Marvel is testing the waters. It feels like Marvel is closing a book properly this time. At the same time, the MCU has already started quietly redefining what a mutant even is in this universe. Kamala Khan being revealed as a mutant instead of an Inhuman was a massive shift, even if it was played off lightly in Ms. Marvel. In the comics, that change would be borderline heresy to some fans, but from an MCU perspective, it makes a lot of sense. It instantly ties Kamala into the mutant narrative and gives her a natural path toward the X-Men, without having to resurrect the entire Inhumans concept, which clearly didn't work on screen. Whether comic purists like it or not, it opens up way more storytelling options for her long-term future. Marvel has also already seeded important mutant-related locations without making a big deal out of it. Madripoor showing up in The Falcon and The Winter Soldier wasn't random. At the same time, it's important to keep expectations in check. Even if the mutants are crucial to the Doomsday story, that doesn't guarantee massive screen time. Marvel has a habit of using powerful characters to establish stakes. There's a very real possibility that the X-Men are used to show just how unstoppable Doom truly is. If Doom can break them, then no reality is safe. That kind of loss would echo throughout both Doomsday and Secret Wars. As for the full reboot, that's clearly a different movie with a different goal. It's hard to imagine Marvel keeping any of the current actors in those roles long term. A clean reboot after Secret Wars feels almost inevitable. Kevin Feige has openly talked about wanting to work with new actors, people he's already had conversations with. Marvel wants fresh energy, and after a saga built entirely on legacy and variance, that makes total sense. What we don't know yet is how hard that reset will be. The multiverse makes everything flexible. Marvel can cast almost anyone in almost any role and explain it away as a different reality. That's why my personal theory is that the X-Men reboot will mirror what Marvel did with Fantastic Four: The First Steps. That movie lived in its own universe, with its own tone, its own visual language, and its own cast. It wasn't immediately tied to the main MCU timeline. Only now are those characters being pulled into the larger conflict with Victor. The X-Men could follow the exact same model, a separate Earth, heavy inspiration from classic comics. Then, after Secret Wars reshapes everything, Marvel can decide how and when to merge those pieces.